just talking about the other day, and this is so hard. Well, fundraising's hard anyway. Putting on events is hard. And so if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. I mean,
Yep.
that's the thing, because no matter what, it's hard. You can mail it in and it's hard. But I thought it'd be fun to have somebody with your experience and the viewpoint, getting to see things on a national level, to come and just, to talk about this. And one, we want to talk about why it's hard. And I kind of broke it down into two parts, and I was going to just start off this way, is one, we know fundraising's hard, but why is it hard? And then the things that we can control and the things that we can't control. And Trevor and I talk about this in our world, in our business and things. And I don't know if I'm still here or not. It looks like I'm frozen or everything's frozen up.
No,
I'm
you're
not
great,
sure.
brother. You're great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep talking.
Please.
But it's one of those things we talk about. We worry about the things we can't control sometimes, and that's happened a lot because the world election year, all these things going on, and then there's the things that we can control. And so I guess I wanted to kind of go through that and get from your perspective, Amy. What do you see are the things that you guys do with your team? Amy Meyers, Muscular Dystrophy.
Yeah, sorry. She's been on so much. Everyone should know where she's from.
We gotta just make assumptions. Everybody knows who she is. But what do you think about that, Amy?
I mean, I agree with everything you said. Fundraising is hard. I've been doing it a long time, and I do think it's getting harder.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, we're having to really take a deep dive at our events. We're actually seeing more money going into the events and less money being raised at our events for this entire year. So for fall, we're really doing a deep dive to see what that is. And a lot of that is, our at the events is the individual donor versus going into the events. It's your company that are doing sponsorships.
Uh-oh.
So,
Hey, Amy, you're breaking up a little bit, so I want to make sure we don't miss anything you said because it was good stuff.
Yeah.
I do think, and Jason mentioned it, I do think election year has a huge, it plays a huge role in how much people donate. There's a little bit of uneasiness. What's the stock market going to do?
Hey, Amy, I'm going to take a time out real quick. Can you hear me?
I do think the economy.
Uh-oh. We lost her.
Sorry.
No, it's
Can you
okay.
hear me?
That's why I was asking. I was going to say you might turn your camera off just because we want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. Everything you're saying is poignant. That's for sure. Yeah, well, Amy was talking about.
I'd like you to go back and just say something you said in the beginning, because you said that, because it was kind of breaking it out, but I kind of heard a little bit of it. Just so we make sure we get it, because I think it's important. You were talking about.
I think the internet is so bad here.
Yeah, but you were saying going with
Okay. Okay, can you hear me when I?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I can hear you loud and clear now.
Uh-oh. Well,
Now I'm not hearing you at all. Okay, well, I think what she was saying was that doing these events, it is hard, and what they're seeing is
I can hear.
this is what happens with a live broadcast sometimes. It doesn't happen to us very
Yeah,
often. And
sometimes
you know
it
what?
comes in live and it does this.
Thanks
but
so much for being patient
Yeah.
with us. It's okay. We've done
Yeah,
about
Amy was
190 of
set-
these.
Yeah, Amy was all set up to come, and then all of a sudden she had a late deal, so we appreciate her being.
Well, you got called into duty. Whoa.
How about now?
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're
this
gonna
is
do
much
it from the
better.
phone. Sorry.
Okay, no.
Don't be sorry. The
So,
phone's
Amy,
great.
So back up and start again where you're talking about going into the event versus at the event. That was really good, but we didn't quite get everything.
So what we're finding, what we found the first 8 months of the year with our events is we are going into the events with more money than we have in past years.
Okay.
However, our night of income is down, which tells us that we're still getting support and increasing our support from companies. It's our individual donors that we're struggling with. And, we're going to try and like revamp some things in the fall, try some different ideas. But ultimately, I truly believe in an election year, there's uneasiness with individuals. There are generation issues. And I say that in the older generations were more giving. So we've got to find a way to get those younger generations involved. And I just think there's donor fatigue, there's 1.8 million nonprofits and we're all competing for money and for support.
Yep. And so, okay.
So it's how do you make your nonprofit stand out when you're one of 1.8?
That's a great point.
Okay.
We have this conversation a lot.
So we're talking about something I think that's really good. What you talked about, going in with more money, not being, not doing I hope it turns out right. We have a good night, because it's just a bad plan because you don't know what's going on. Unfortunately, the things we can't control are elections, and I think it's unknown. I've had somebody I had an economist tell me one time, he goes, people, it doesn't matter if what's going on, but they know that the economy, we're in a recession, fine, we'll deal with it. We know we're not in a recession, fine, we'll deal with it. But it's in that teetering weird time, such as he said, election cycles, maybe some kind of instability things. He goes, that's what people, it's the fear of unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is people don't know which way to turn. Do I, do this? Do I go left? And, he said the market, is the worst indicator of what's really happening. And he said, you'll see what people are doing. And so they tend to sit on their hands. I think we know that. We've seen it from our own numbers. We're seeing the first half of the year, the first quarter especially was very strong, really good. Second quarter, it kind of was off. Third quarter, really after the summer, we started going, we saw that our average revenue per event is down on our side, that we can indicate is down 15%. And we believe the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean it's all bad. Okay. It doesn't mean we're still going to do events. We're still raising money. We're still doing these things. But I think it's
doomsday stuff. Yeah.
These are things we can't control. I mean, we can't wave a wand and the election's going to go away. It's going to be here for another couple of months. But we still have to have our events. We're still doing that. So I guess, what are the things that you guys are focused on that you can control right now?
I think you just kind of alluded to it. The biggest thing is we typically try to go into events with 65 to 70% of our income secured. And then we rely on 30% night of, and we're just bumping that up. And we're trying to get more, closer to 80% and then getting 20%. And we're eliminating some stuff, we're cutting back on revenue enhancers and really focusing on, for the live auction, really quality items, things that you can't just get anywhere, and just trying to be strategic on when we, place different, our fund and need, we're making sure it's very, very early in the evening when guests are, not that they're not having fun the whole time, but they're still kind of fresh and they've had a few cocktails, not too many, but just really strategically trying to plan. But I think the biggest thing is just not counting on getting that normal 30% that we have in the past.
Are you doing this with less people? Are there less people in the room? Just out of curiosity.
No, we're not seeing less people. We're seeing the same number of people, but it's similar to what you said with your revenue being down. Our average donation per donor is down.
Interesting.
Yeah, whenever I'm coaching with somebody, and by the way, if you see my little QR code right here,
cool? I think that's really cool.
If you
wow.
just scan that, you can sign right up for some coaching with Trevor or I, absolutely free. But that's what we always, when I go through this, I'm always talking about it. Trevor and I did a podcast on it the other day, because we always say, look, 70%. If you walk in the door with 70% of your goal, and then you can build everything in the way to make sure the ensure to work that you're going to get your 30% that you know. That way, if we're in an election cycle, if there's a stock market instability, if it snows in May, whatever's going on, we're still going to make our number, because you still got to make your number. However, if you do hit everything right and the stock market's going up and the election's over and, there's peace on earth and everybody, is flush with cash, that you've got headroom. That way you can hit those stretch goals. Yeah. But we always want to go in there with that deal, because we don't ever want to walk in, from my standpoint, of going, I really hope we have a good night. And I literally had somebody years ago do that with me, and I was like, oh boy. And that's frightening. When you're walking into something, because you don't know, because at that point, the things that are in your control are over.
Right. 100%.
Don't you
But
agree?
what you can control, Jason, is the donors that are going to be in your room, the big donors. You have to have the conversations ahead of time. Don't leave them for the night of to wait and see if the donor that gave me $50,000. I don't want it to be a surprise. I want to have conversations ahead of time and know that I'm going to get that. Yes. Yes.
Yep. Let me ask that too, though, because if you're not raising as much money night of, then it would bear reasoning that you would be focused on raising more money before the event. So, I mean, is it as simple as, and I'm being silly, but is it as simple as just asking for more, as far as from sponsors, and this is what you did last year, and having those conversations well in advance, and hey, and just actually opening the curtain to see and to show them what's going on at the event and why those dollars are so important pre-event, things like that. Are you going down that path?
100%. I mean,
cool.
We're big on, increasing sponsorship levels
no matter
every
what.
other year, no matter what. But also, like, you really have to look at them strategically. The economy is not good, and food is really high, and our expenses are higher. So really making sure you have your levels where you need them going into the event. And then, and you mentioned it too, it's not just about selling those sponsorships. It's about bringing them to your mission and having the conversation and showing them they need to see a return on their investment. People want to see that their $5,000 donation is going to pay for a cabin of kids at summer camp, or, you've got to, and the other piece, I say this all the time is, and, fundraising is hard. And part of it is hard because we don't like rejection. And
you gotta use it. It's hearing no.
I mean, I think as fundraisers, we've just got to find a way to really make those asks. It's not comfortable to ask somebody for a big chunk of money, or to have that conversation about needing a sponsor to jump from 25 to 50,000. But I think that's one of the things we all need to work on is having that confidence and know that we're giving them an opportunity to be part of something great.
Yep.
It is an opportunity. Companies are going to donate. So it's a matter.
Are they going to donate to you or somebody else?
Yep.
Or to everyone, but then how much? Yeah.
I've got a question just kind of off the cuff. So when you say, making those asks, would you be really specific about how you talk to your team and how you coach your committees to go and make that ask?
I mean, it's kind of two different, because obviously committees are volunteer. So you have to be gentle. And this is, the thing we got to remember with committees, this isn't their number one. I mean, most of them have a job. This is what they do in their spare time. So, I mean, I'm kind of a blunt person, and I just explain to them why we need them to make X number of asks and why, but we have conversations with them. We help them build their target list. We explain to them, and I'm a big data person. I'm not afraid to show a committee member, this is who you invited last year, and you had 10 people sitting in the room and they didn't spend a dime. So they kind of cost me money because they were eating and drinking. So, I mean, I just think you have to have real conversations. And as far as staff, I mean, it's the same thing. They're trained to, Jason, you said it a million times, like, helping to make those sponsor lists and helping the committee think, who's in their network, who's on their Rolodex, and just working with them. And here again, showing them statistics. This is what we need to make. This is why. This is the research grant we need to pay for, or equaling it out to why it's needed.
So on that same track, like whenever if you were going in to talk to somebody about a sponsorship, let's say that you don't have, you haven't had, they've never given to you before, but you're going to go in and talk to them. Well, do you go in and say, well, we're looking for a donation of $50,000? Do you ask them for 25? Or do you just say, here's where we can help. Where do you see yourself at? And where do you think you could do? And I mean, how do you really specifically?
It depends. So if it's a new sponsor, I'm going to have 1 or 2 meetings with them first to feel them out, learn about their company, learn what they do, learn what's of interest to them, so that when I go back to them, I'm going to propose what I feel is where they want to be. I'm always going to go higher, knowing that, in conversations that, they're really interested in funding a research grant for $25,000. I'm still going to ask for 50.
Yeah.
And then, sometimes they say yes. Most of the time they say no. They go to the lower level, but that's for a new person. If it's a sponsor that's year after year, it's just, I'm just going to have that conversation and say, everything's increasing. Prices are increasing. The cost of research, the cost of our care centers, all the things. And I'm just going to ask them for the higher amount, but I'm going to explain to them why I need the higher amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are situations where I'm going to give them a sponsorship piece, and it's going to have 10 different levels to pick from. And they're going to pick based on where they're comfortable. Depending, I think the other piece of it is depends on the company. Is it a small mom and pop company that you're being super unrealistic to ask for $25,000, but like their $2,500 is important, is going to help. So, I think it really depends on you just have to do the research.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that when we're talking about, because, the hardest thing for everybody to do is go ask for money. I was talking to a young lady yesterday, and she was talking about, we've got this person coming in, and she's at a foundation, and she's trying to figure out what to ask her. And I said, well, find out what she wants to do. And because we were just kind of going through it, because she's never given, it's a private school, and this person has a grandchild there, but she also has a foundation, and she's doing that. And I said, I think it's okay to have a conversation. What are you looking forward to do? What are you doing? You set up a foundation. I said, she set up a foundation to give away money.
Right.
She didn't set a foundation up to keep it.
Yeah.
So,
good call.
But one of the things I think that happens for a lot of times is we default and we opt out of making that powerful ask when we had the opportunity, and we think we're letting ourselves off the hook because we start thinking on our money, and we're afraid of rejection. I've never, ever, not one time have I ever heard anybody say to me in all the years of fundraising and, going and asking for money. I've never been a professional fundraiser from a paid staff, but just committees, things like that, where it made somebody mad because I asked them for more. Not one time.
No question.
No.
Never, ever. Now they might laugh and go, wow, Jason,
Hey,
hold on a minute. Yeah, I'm not sure who you thought you were talking to here, but
we're still on first base.
Let's just take her back, and I kind of start because teasing and having a conversation. But what I found is it really, quite frankly, takes all the pressure off at that.
I was going to say it makes it probably even more comfortable after that,
because I have had some people go, well, you don't think I got any more money than that to give?
Sure. There's an ego involved or what?
And
flattery,
or something like that. I could do a little more than that if we need to. Yeah. Well, sure we need to, but I don't know where in the world you want to be at. Do you want to give 100,000? We'll accept it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not going to do that. But I'll tell you what. Why don't you put me in for 25 and let's start there. And it's a funny conversation because I think we're so afraid of, like you said, the rejection. Mm-hmm. That we forget that we're talking to somebody who's, you know, they're having a conversation with you for a reason. If it
Mhm.
was an automatic no, they wouldn't
It
be
wouldn't be on
talking
the
to you.
phone. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Good call.
Nobody's gonna, I'm just, you know, nobody's gonna bring you in and have a conversation with you or take your phone call if they're gonna reject you. Now, maybe you had a couple of conversations and you find out there's some alignment issues. Maybe it's just, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they say, look, I'm gonna buy a table, but you know, thought we'd do a $25,000 deal. Things have changed. We're gonna do 10. Having those conversations. Um,
Let me ask a question. It kind of in the same space though. Are those conversations? Are you getting feedback from your team and committees, Amy? You know that those conversations are getting harder, or that they're the same, or I mean, you're having to get having to sharpen the pencil a little bit more, open the curtain a little bit
No,
more. You know.
I don't necessarily. I mean, those conversations never get any easier, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting harder. I mean, like I said,
People are not getting the door shut in their face. Long story
No,
short. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the corporations here again. I mean, if you're asking the right companies, they have money to give away.
Yeah. Good call.
You know what I mean? You shouldn't be wasting your time with the company that is going bankrupt and can't give. I mean, you're if you're strategic and you're doing your research and you're asking the companies, they have the money to give.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think, I mean, I will tell you, I did read an article and I think I sent it to you guys that corporate donations were down in the nonprofit industry, but we're not seeing that. Knock on
Yeah.
wood.
Y'all have been really, really strong in that space for a really long time too, though. Yeah.
Well, and we lose sponsors. I mean, straight up,
Sure.
we lose them.
I've
We
seen the
have
turnover.
attrition,
Yeah.
but we plan for 20% attrition every year. 20%
Gotcha.
is and we are always filling that pipeline because the other thing is, you know, it's pretty rare that you just meet somebody, a company, and you have a conversation and they give you money. I mean, there's a relationship building time frame that has to take place. So, we're just constantly building that pipeline and knowing that, I might be working with a company right now that they're not going to give it to me this year, but they're in my brain for 2025 because I feel like by then I will have been able to tie them to the mission, been able to really show them what my nonprofit does, and I've been able to build that relationship because relationships have the battle.
oh,
You
for
said it.
sure.
You said it.
I
Yeah.
want to just kind of make a clarifying statement because I
Yeah.
think there might be somebody who's watching this, listening to this, whether it's now or in the recording, and seeing this, and they're like, "Yeah, but Amy, you've got a big team, big staff, your national organization, all that." Well, that's not quite. You and I have had this
Committee-driven, though.
conversation, so
Yeah.
I already know what the answer is.
Committee-driven. Yeah.
That's not true, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Not,
Yeah.
no, I mean, for us, it's yeah, we're a national organization, but we're also an organization that is 100%, remote. So I'm running a Dallas event from North Carolina and trying to find new companies and build relationships through Zoom calls. And the
Yeah.
other piece of it is, I think it goes down to the charity. I mean, we are a national organization. We are in the rare disease space.
Yeah. You said it's been an uphill battle. Yeah.
It is a struggle. And, and that's not just me being there for years. I see it, time and time again. We bring in these, we get new staff and they came from a different, bigger organization and they come in with all these great ideas. And then they slowly realize they're like, wow, this is really hard. This isn't like those big organizations that you see running commercials and stuff. So I think, the size of it is, I don't think the size of your nonprofit has as much to do with it as some people think, but don't get me wrong. I do also, when we talk about fundraising being hard, I do think that is a battle that people have is because there are many small nonprofits. I think there's resource issues within those nonprofits. And you are sometimes a one-man team. And so by no means am I saying that there's not struggles with that, because there absolutely is.
Well, I think that's part of the thing is somebody goes, we know what's the average size is $250,000 and, 2.5 FTEs or something like that, kind of on the numbers you're talking about. Now we know that's because there's a lot of that are just tiny that don't really do anything. And so it brings the average down. But, when there's only, you've got 2 or 3 of you or 2.5 people there, 2 people and a volunteer, you go, well, how am I going to get this done? how in the world are, can I go talk to all these people? And that's where it gets hard is I think that's
Yes.
a big part of the hard is how in the world do I do this? Because I've got, not only am I the director of development, but I'm also the service coordinator, for providing the services that we provide. I'm the one that coordinates all that
Yeah.
stuff. So talk to me a little bit about how you work with your team and you guys think about um, to do this pre-event fundraising and how much time you give yourselves and what that looks like.
I mean, for our events, I mean, we're pretty much each event, we're on a 1 year cycle. I mean, when an event's done, when we've just had an event, we breathe for a day, and then we're already starting to book the venue and look at next year's date. And I'm big with my team. They'll tell you, like, stewarding our donors all year long. It's not, oh, hey, it's May and our event's coming up and we want you to come. They've heard from me every month. So they know when the next event is and they know what's happening at my nonprofit. So, I mean, we're on a kind of a continuous cycle, really. They never really end.
Yeah. Amy, do you find that people think a lot of times if they don't hear from you, they think, well, it must be okay because they didn't call me. They must be doing okay because I haven't heard anything.
I
Have
mean,
you ever,
maybe. I mean, here again, like I said, I'm so big on, and we have a CRM, so I can track, I look at my team's activity. So I know that they're communicating. So I'd like to say we've just not really been in that position, but I've never had anybody say it to me, but if I were a donor and I didn't hear from somebody until it was time to, like, give again and they didn't touch base with me in the year, I'd be kind of mad. I'd feel not necessarily that they don't need me, but more that they don't respect me and aren't being a good steward of the money that I gave them, because
taking you for granted. Yeah.
I mean, we're just really big on sending out impact reports. And if it's we work with so many different donors. If they've got a connection to a specific disease, if a new drug's released, I'm automatically sending that drug information to them. So I don't know. I just think that's one thing you have to find time to do is steward your donors. Have to.
I think that we kind of get caught up in, when we're thinking about stewarding donors and golly, I got to call some donors. And so we think we got to call 50 of them in one day. And the reality is that's not. I mean, it's impossible to do that kind of stuff. We promote the power of 3 calls a day. It's something I came up with several years ago with somebody doing a fundraiser, and I was like, well, how many calls can you make a day? Well, I could probably make 10. Well, how many could you make before noon? 5. I said, what if we agreed you could make 3?
Yeah.
Before noon. That way, if something happens, there's something gets in the way, I got something to do, have a doctor's appointment, but you have all afternoon to make your calls and to do that. And that way it was get done. And it's amazing if you think about it let's say there's 23 working days in a month, 24 working days in a month, that's 72 calls that you could make in a month's time, points of outreach, whatever you want to call it. I mean, maybe you're writing notes, maybe you're making phone calls, maybe you're doing it, but it's significant what you can do in just a short amount of time, a 90-day span. It's huge impact.
We still do some handwritten notes for big donors and big companies. We do old school sending thank you notes or just a note to say hi.
It's funny that you bring that up. My wife was cleaning one of our upstairs storage closet. And of course, she's making me go through boxes. It's mine. I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's just my stuff. Yeah, you don't mess with it, because I really don't want to go through it because I know I'm going to have to clean stuff up. But I found some notes that people had sent me. And she's like, well, are you going to get rid of those? I said, no, you know what? I think I'm going to keep it.
Yeah.
Because 10, 15 years ago that somebody had written me a note and it just really had some meaning to me, the person that sent it. And I'm like, no, I think I'll keep it.
Yeah.
And it's in a box back in the closet, it's up there, but it's still that personal. I think that we underestimate the power of it, and it doesn't have to be a lot. These are simple, hey, I really appreciate you for such and such. Thanks.
Yep.
Means a lot. It really does. And even if somebody takes it and takes it off their desk and drops it right in the trash can because they're more efficient than I am. They don't forget it. And I had a guy tell me one time, he said, the way I look at giving money, he said, if every time you call me is to ask me for money, I get tired. Then I don't take the calls.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's not a great approach. Well, you were just talking about, Amy says relationships are half the battle. We could even argue there it could be even more. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? And then
Well, I think it's everything. Yeah.
yeah, and then if is that how you foster relationships in your personal life? Is it's like whenever I call you, I'm asking for something, or I need a favor, or what? I actually have friends like that I grew up with, that I've been friends with for over 30 years. That it's like a joke in the circle. It's like, oh, he must need something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Type thing, and yeah, that doesn't make anybody feel good for sure. Yeah, it's a great reminder, of course.
So, we've talked about what was hard. We've talked about, the things that are out of our control. We've talked about the things that are in our control. One of the things to talk to me just about that mental mindset, because I think this is something that we overlook a lot because, going to ask for money is uncomfortable, and going and talking about asking somebody for money is uncomfortable. It just is. I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it's that way with every culture, but I know for our culture, it is. So I think a 95% call reluctance rate for every committee, everybody. Nobody likes to call and ask for money.
Yeah, no question.
So what do you do to prepare? Amy, what do you do to prep your team? What do you see to get yourself ready to do that?
I mean, obviously, like most companies, I mean, we do a lot of trainings. We have a lot of different webinars and stuff that people can participate in. We do role play. I'm not gonna lie, I don't love role play, but we do role play. We mentor. We have mentors. So the ones that are a little bit more experienced. We have some of the greener staff tag along. I'm a big, you learn by doing something. So it's a little bit of training, and then it's go do it and make mistakes, because you're gonna get no's, and you have to, I think every person has to learn what their style of ask is, or what their elevator speech is. Because Jason, how you talk to somebody and how you go ask for money might not be even close to how I do it. I mean, I think you have to, you can only train so much, and then people have to get their own comfort level.
One of the things that and Trevor mentioned this, he talked about webinars, we've done 190 of these or something like this. You were like one of our very first ones. Once you start doing it, you kind of get better, because you just get better.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start asking,
reps,
you start asking. Once you start asking, you're going to get better. So, but in that, and this is something I had somebody tell me a long time ago, and it didn't really click for a little while. And this was in the sales perspective, but it said, well, I don't want to sound like I'm saying a canned speech. He goes, every presentation's canned. I don't want to say like it's a canned presentation. Well, they all are. He said, it's how you put it. And I thought that was really good. I like your idea of role playing. I think it's invaluable, because it's so awkward and so uncomfortable that it's 10 times more doing it with peers than what it is when you're actually doing it with somebody in the real world. That's my
true story. 100%.
That's why I think it's so good. So, because if Trevor and I are sitting there doing it, because I know Trevor's sitting there going, God, this guy's such a retard. Can he not say anything faster, better? And, does he really sound like this? Nobody's ever going to listen to him. So that's what I'm thinking. No, that's not really what's going on. He's listening to me and thinking about what's going on, but it's hard. Much more difficult than when you're going and talking to somebody in the real world.
Yeah.
So I think if you have an opportunity to do that, and if you ever want to role play, if you're watching this and you don't have anybody to role play with, sign up for coaching. We'll role play with you.
No question. You know what I think has been really, really impactful for our team actually is shadowing as well.
Yeah.
Just sitting in on calls or sitting in on a coaching session or what have you. We get feedback from that all the time. And it's just, another thing is like, don't know what you would call it, I guess shadowing. We were talking about role playing, you know, and going over conversations and what have you, and what inevitably comes up in those conversations when you're having them in real time. You know, I think it's great to have a team around you. I guess it would still be called shadowing, but to listen to someone else's approach and hear it and glean from it, and you know, I don't. I'm not like in this crazy like Buddhist space right now, but it seems like every person that we get the opportunity to talk to, I'm kind of getting into it like, or going into it and leaving it and taking notes like I'm learning. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually okay. Yeah, it could be a reminder. I could have heard it before. And I think having that kind of like almost student approach, I actually think is can be really beneficial because we don't know everything. Obviously, you both are wildly prolific fundraisers and both brilliant, and I've heard some of the most amazing things about fundraising I've heard from anybody from the two of you. You know, but you all are still learning and coming up with new ideas, and the market's changing, and the yada yada, you know, all these things are happening. I just think that listening to other people and hearing their approach, especially if they're good, if they're successful, you know, there's a reason, and imparting, you know, a lot of those gifts and skills and whatnot and talents that you hear from other folks into your own approach can only benefit you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think that being coachable and being a student and listening to others, I think it can be really helpful because it sure as heck helped me, especially recently. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Jason and I were talking to a gentleman. I'm not going to say who he is, and yesterday, and we both. I was taking notes talking to the fella, and he works with a partner of ours that we worked with for 5 years, and the partnership's amazing, and they're amazing. And I was taking notes in a normal, just like, you know, call, you know, like, hey, we're connecting, and like, what's going on?
I'm taking notes right now. So, I mean,
But
there's,
I'm telling
there's,
you, like,
yeah.
and Jason and I talked about it 24 hours later after after we're like digesting the call because we had a really long day yesterday and everything. It's like, oh my gosh, like that was amazing feedback. He was actually, I will spill the beans a little bit. This is very interesting because I thought of it when you mentioned our night of, and are we going to have to make the, you know, I have my opinions about this, Amy, and I'm not saying I have the answers. I have opinions. You know, you're talking about the night of, you're talking about a demographic, a younger demographic. It sounds like you probably already know the answer. My mind immediately went to, okay, well, how do you build that night of community? How do you create a more exciting event? Like I'm assuming that's probably where a lot of the focus is going to be going. So folks choose to, you know, like our guest last week, Rossi said, hey, create an event, create a night of atmosphere where people would want to come, even if you weren't even raising money. And I was like, that's what I mean about being like a student of this. It's like, wow, holy smokes. I've never heard anyone say that. That's awesome. Yes. Make it something where, like, because we were talking about FOMO and missing out, you know, it's like, make it an event worth going to, even if there wasn't even a fundraising component, because it'd be so fun, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think creating that community around your events and around your organization can be really huge for these tough times or growth moves,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah. Whew, I'm out of breath now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think you have to be ready to pivot in
Good call.
fundraising.
Good call.
I mean, what worked last year may not work at all this year. So I mean, you just gotta be ready to pivot and, you know, come up with new ideas and switch things up and be willing to change.
Yeah. I
One
love
of
it.
the things that I think, you know, we had a guy on, Dan the lawyer from Ducks Unlimited. He said, you know, you got to be fast, fluid, and flexible
We've
when
said
you're
it like
doing these
50
events.
times since he came on. It's
Yeah, he
awesome.
just
It's
said
our
we're
new
going to be
thing.
fast, fluid, and flexible because we're here. We got to maximize this opportunity, and that's one of the things I think sometimes we miss out on. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I won't say who it was. And they said, "Yeah, we think we're going to wait. Maybe we'll try that next year." Well, I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody what they should do. I give some experience, share, and guidance, and then you got to make up your own mind because if you don't believe in what you're going to, what doesn't matter anyway. But I'm sitting there thinking, you've done all the work to get everybody there. You've done all these things to put these people together. Why wouldn't you maximize the opportunity? Why wouldn't you do everything that you possibly could to try to raise
Yeah.
as much money as you possibly could? Because you don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't know what the economy is going to bring. You don't know if because if you do have the chance and everything goes right and you raise an extra $100,000, because next year you may not raise that extra 100. And so you've always got to take advantage of, because you did all the work anyway. So you might as well go all the way.
Mhm.
And these events are hard. There is no question. The amount of hours and, all the stuff, we've all talked about it. Doing events is not the most efficient way to raise money. But, there's just nothing else that really can bring people together to be able to educate them, celebrate, raise money, identify new potential donors, all the things that go into
Show them a
it
good time.
by doing events.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just nothing else you can do where you all of a sudden you get 600 people in a room and you get a chance to have them trapped for a couple of hours where you can talk to them and meet them and find out who they are and identify all of a sudden somebody who just showed up and they spent $25,000 and you didn't have any idea they hadn't had two nickels to rub together, but they do. And all of a sudden you can start the relationship with them because maybe they don't buy anything next year, but they become a $25,000 sponsor because they have that kind of capacity. So all those things, I believe with all my heart, these things are worth doing and they are hard, but it's not going to be there. There's no shortcut to it. I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
There's just not a shortcut.
Amy, you mentioned, like, hey, we're really, we're really doing an audit, so to speak, or, a self-assessment of what's going on at the events this fall, all this, and you're going to make some changes. The option that's not on the table is we're not going to do events anymore. That's not you know what I mean?
It's not.
Yeah, we're gonna figure this out. We've been through hard times. We've been through harder times than this. We're gonna figure it out. Not getting all like, it's horrible out there or anything like that. But yeah, it's not even on the table. That's not even a thing. So yeah.
No, so you have to figure it out. And, I mean, and we also, we use our events as somewhat of an acquisition program.
No
in
question.
that, we now, one of the things that MDA is focused on is really, we're super grassroots. We are, the small events, the small donation, and they're really putting focus on our major gift donors. We don't have a lot of major gift donors. And so, our events are going to be the acquisition program to get major gift donors. They're going to be, if we have the right people in the room, they're future committee members for other events. So, I mean, yeah, there's so much that comes out of these events. There's no not doing them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. It's a little theory I'm working on. Okay. An hypothesis. All right. So, and this just really has come up in the last couple of days and just some coaching calls and things coming up with. And the reason I'm asking this, Amy, is because everybody's got the same situation. Everybody's donors are getting older. Everybody's, we're trying to find the younger donors. Everybody's going through this. And the way that you get to a major donor is you start with a smaller donor. I mean, that's just generally how it comes. It's not very often that you step into somebody and they just write you a check for 50 grand and woohoo, we just let's set the glitter bombs off and have a good time. Is to make that tent bigger. And one of my hypothesis of this, and I know Trevor loves this thing about when you're doing an event, it's a reason to talk about it. It's a reason to tell people. It's a reason to talk about your mission, about what's going on. And maybe about it, not just from the standpoint of people that are going to come to the mission, but maybe the people that might someday want to come, letting them know what's happening, letting them know that, hey, this big event, but you may not, maybe you're not going to spend $500 on a ticket because, we want to have people that have capacity to come to the event. We want to have donors and not consumers. Eaters and drinkers, as Amy says. But my thinking is if we can broaden that tent, get more people under the canvas, if you would, under the footprint of it, then that's going to help us identify people and cultivate them in and cultivate those relationships. Does any of that make sense, Amy, or am I barking up a wrong tree?
No, I mean, I definitely think you're onto something. It has to be, it has to be the right people because you don't want to just take on a bunch more expenses for a bunch of people that aren't ever going to be anything. So I think it just goes back to having the conversations and making sure, but yeah, I mean, you have nothing to lose by broadening the group of people that are in the room. I mean, for events, I don't know if this is good advice or bad advice, but we do have situations where we have people that underwrite the cost of, food, beverage, whatever. And it gives us a little bit of flexibility because our expenses are very low that we do invite people in that don't necessarily, they get comped, so to speak. We're going to invite them in as a VIP guest because the hope is that we're going to build a relationship and down the road it's going to be something bigger. So, I mean, we do fill some tables occasionally we'll do it for my Dallas event. We'll probably have 3 tables of people that are like my prospects that I need to get in that room. I need them to learn about my mission because down the road, I want them to be big spenders.
Yeah. Yeah. Setting the table for that. I think that's really smart, actually. I don't think people talk about that very much. I think it's massive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in that line, I think this whole thing about pre-event fundraising, pre-event advertising, talking about what you're doing, making those phone calls, it all kind of comes in the same thing, letting people know. I think especially now where you're having a conversation to say, hey, Trevor, I need you to show up and show out this year. We really like to have you come, and hey, we've got some really cool things in the live auction. Like to take a look at it. Maybe this is something that you'd like to be, bid on. Is there something that we don't have that you'd really like to come bid on? We've got a fund a need that we'd really like to challenge, and we're really trying to push our $500 donors. Would you be willing to make a gift that we could use and use that as a match challenge? At the $500 level, all those kind of things, having those conversations with donors, it's never the wrong thing to do.
Never.
Maybe Trevor goes, Jason, I really can't, I don't think I could make a significant deal. I tell you what, though, I'll do 10,000, use it however you want to. I was going to do 20. Yeah, do whatever you want to with it. But having those conversations, all of a sudden, well, I got Trevor for 10. I mean, just having that conversation, because if you're sitting back, what you said, I'm wait until the night of to go, well, I hope Trevor shows up and does something. Gosh, have the call before. I've just never seen anybody be upset about that.
No question. No question.
And it kind of makes them start thinking about it. Oh, you know what? I do want to do something. Maybe I've never given more than that. Maybe had a pretty good year. Yeah, things are kind of wonky right now, but we're going to be good. We had an exceptional year.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through 3 down cycles, and I know we're talking about economy and things because who in the world knows what's going to happen? If I could predict it, I wouldn't be sitting here doing webinars for nonprofits. I'd be clipping coupons on a beach. I love y'all and all that, but that's probably what I'd be doing.
Jason Damas, Nostradamus.
Yeah. So we can't do that. But I remember people having significant capacity and being willing to do it because their business was really kind of counter-cyclical. When everybody else was, just, getting hammered by the mortgage crisis in 2008, these people, they're just making
You bring up a
money
really good point that people need to be aware of. There is a flip side to this. No question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good call.
And they wanted to be asked. And when people asked, they answered. That was, I think that was the thing. I saw when they were asked, they answered.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I think
they had to be asked.
Well, I guess they say a lot of people make hay when there's blood in the water. I'm not saying that to disparage anybody and how they make a living or how these corporations make a living, corporation XYZ, but they've
got more cash on hand than they've ever had right now.
Companies do an exceptional job because they put themselves in that position to take advantage of downturns and whatnot in the in the economic world zeitgeist, right? Or the different cycles that happen in whatever industry they're involved in. Some companies will do very, very, very well and are right now. And that should be another encouraging sign or just idea that your outreach is paramount. Yeah.
Well, last chance for any questions if anybody's got one, because we're about to give something away.
Hey, Amy, when's your event? You're doing a Boston event. Talk to us about it.
We have a walk on Saturday.
Okay, cool. Far out. Nice.
Yeah.
Hope the weather's good.
I know it's looking like it's supposed to be. So last year when we had the walk here, it was actually when the hurricane was coming up through. So it was a little wet. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
looking for a nice day.
All right, here we go. Jason.
What do you see? What do you see, Trevor? What do you see?
You branded the wheel in blue, in HGA blue.
Yeah.
God bless you. Wow, that looks great.
So let me look at this. I got to do something real quick because I got to make sure I get the right.
Who's the winner though today?
That's what I had to go. And it
other than everyone,
Annie Lampard and Annie Lampard.
Hey, so, Annie, way to go.
So hey, we're gonna get to spin the wheel. Let me go back. I'm gonna share the wheel.
What have you won? Tell us what you won.
And go ahead and hit spin. And there it goes. Yeah, Trevor's been on me about the colors, so I had to revamp our wheel colors.
I love
All
it.
right. So Annie, you won
$300
300
winner.
HGA bucks. You can use that
Far
for
out.
any item.
Yep.
We had somebody who had won a couple times, cashed in $700 in HGA bucks the other day.
Nice.
I don't understand how that even happened. That shouldn't have happened. No, I'm joking. But that's awesome. Wow. Someone was someone that made the biggest withdrawal.
They really work. They really work.
The HGA bank that had ever been made. Well, awesome. That's great. Hey, Annie, thanks so much for coming. Thanks everybody for coming. Amy, thank you for taking time. I hope everyone understands how grateful we are that because you're traveling and to hey, Jason's done the airport thing one time. Remember when you were delivering a puppy to your son?
Yeah.
That
Gosh,
was cool.
That was during. That was crazy. That was
2021, I want to say. Yeah.
Wow.
So cool. Isn't that fun? Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for coming. Amy, thanks so much. Please travel safe.
I will. And thanks for having me.
Can't wait to do it again. Jay, thanks so much, man.
You betcha. Appreciate everybody.
Thanks, Bev. Appreciate the feedback.